Just today, Ravens wide receiver Zay Flowers was ruled out for Saturday's matchup with the Steelers. So, Paul, is Lamar under the most pressure in these playoffs?
Without a doubt. The thing about Lamar is when you're the best player who's never won a championship, those expectations follow you the rest of your career until you win a championship. He's raised the bar as an individual player by winning the MVPs. He's played on top teams, had expectations last year that they didn't fulfill. And this is a, I wouldn't want to say pressure, but this is more like it's like an honor, kind of, because like there's not a lot of guys that's in his position that you're like, hey, we expect you to win the championship because you're that good. And so, with being great, that's what comes with it, expectation.
Yeah, I would agree. He's won 2 MVPs. He might win a third. He's probably had his best season, over 40 touchdowns through the air, and they have featured him as a passer in a way they haven't before. I think there's a lot of pressure, but I think he can handle it. I would say that if you go back to last year's AFC Championship against Kansas City, when they get down, they stop running the ball, they get away from what makes them great, which is that balance. I think Todd Monk and their OC will have learned from that. I would also say that when they played Kansas City earlier this year, they lost. It was a very close game. There was the second fewest carries for Derrick Henry all year. So I would lean a lot on Derrick Henry. It's not a knock on Lamar, but that's what made this team so great this season, Joy and Paul, is that balance, the play action, and the fact that Derrick Henry can absorb a 30-touch workload. They do not have the bye this year. Maybe that will help them. Last year they had the week off, and they ended up losing again in the AFC title game. But I really like this version of Lamar. I think it's, again, the best he's played. But I would lean on Paul and say when you're having this caliber of season, Paul, and you've won the 2 MVPs, possibly a third, do you feel more pressure knowing that the expectation is higher than ever?
Of course you do. You're the elite of the elite. You've had your best season ever. You're considered by many the best player. Right. This is like LeBron James expectations. Since LeBron came into the league and started winning MVPs, it was like, oh, it's championship or bust for Lamar for the rest of his career until he gets the monkey off his back.
I disagree. I think Josh Allen has more pressure.
Woo.
Well, there's
Patrick Mahomes has more pressure.
Ooh, I don't know.
He's in the boat.
Jared Goff has more pressure. I think Lamar's up there too, but I would, if we were ranking them, I would say 4th. He's up there. He's in that group. But yeah, because the Ravens got to the AFC Championship game last year. And when I look at great players and what they're accomplishing, what boxes have you checked? Right? So he checked a unanimous MVP. Mm-hmm. He's gotten to the playoffs. He's won the division. He's won playoff games. He won a second MVP.
Yep.
He hasn't gotten past the divisional round. Well, now he went to the AFC Championship game last year. So he's continuing to check boxes. He may win another MVP this year. I think they will end up giving it to Josh Allen, but either way, he will be the runner-up or the winner of the MVP this year. But Josh Allen, to me, has more pressure because even though I agree that MVPs add something to it, what have you done for me lately? That's what this league is. Well, lately, Lamar Jackson had another great season.
Yeah.
He put his team in a position to win the division, to have a home playoff game, and he had another MVP-level season. Last year, he won the MVP and took his team to the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen hasn't been there in a while. They haven't been to the AFC Championship game since 2020. Now, he did check that box, but it's been since 2020. They win the division every single year, and this year, I think the expectations for him are higher. I don't think that there's no pressure on Lamar Jackson. Mm. But when I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs with the #1 seed in the AFC and home field advantage going for a 3rd straight championship, which has never been done in the history of the NFL, if they get knocked early, that's a big conversation. Mm-hmm. If the Ravens and Bills match up in week 2 and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens lose to the Bills, I mean, it's a failure because their ultimate goal is to win a championship, but I'm not going to crush Lamar Jackson. I don't think anybody will. So when we're talking about pressure, when I look at who will we be the most outraged? If they lost to the Steelers in week 1 of the playoffs, okay, that's a different conversation. But all of us are assuming that they're going to take care of the Steelers this weekend. The Steelers are reeling. They're not in a good situation right now. Let's assume that they make it to the divisional round. If they don't make it past, say, the Bills in the second round of the playoffs, everyone's freaking out. It's a failure of a season because of what Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have. But somebody's got to win, and somebody's got to lose.
Who's the best player in the NFL to you?
Patrick Mahomes.
All right. He already checked that box. Who's next?
But he hasn't checked a historic box of 3 straight championships, which they are on a road to do.
Yeah, but this is not about Patrick. This is about Lamar.
But Josh Allen also hasn't made it to the Super Bowl.
I get it. But who's the second best player in the league to you? Josh Allen?
I think it varies. Like
If it's Josh Allen, then I agree.
It changes. It changes week to week.
But there's no wrong answer there.
There's no wrong answer. I think they're all on the same level.
Yeah,
but
they are the same level, for sure.
But that's why I'm saying Lamar just went to the AFC Championship game last year. He just won an MVP last year. Yeah. I'm not saying that it won't be disappointing. I'm not saying that the goals aren't the same.
You're saying that.
But if you're asking me who has more pressure right now, I'm saying I'm giving a slight nod to Josh Allen and the Bills.
Well, yeah, like Josh definitely is in the boat because these are the guys we consider the best players. Mahomes, consensus. Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen. It's been that way for the last 4 or 5 years. So, yeah, Josh is definitely in that boat. But I gave Lamar the edge just because he got the MVPs and Josh hasn't yet. You know, that's why I gave him the edge. But they're all in the same boat. And Burrow's going to be in that boat pretty soon, too, when he starts winning because he's been to the championship, and we consider him in the Big Four. So it's going to be on him pretty soon. And are we going to be like, is he really like that?
Oh, they were doing that earlier this year. The only reason that we're not doing that is because he's turned it around towards the end of the season, and we know how bad that defense is. But, yeah, there's always pressure on greats, and there's really no wrong answer. But to me, I think it's about what have you done lately. I think it would be disappointing for Josh Allen to have this level of a season, for them to not go all the way. It would be disappointing for Lamar as well.
I would take it a step further and say there's pressure on John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh has been to a Super Bowl, but the knock on him, similarly to Lamar the past few years, has been he's getting flamed out in the playoffs. So if you collectively put them together, and it's one of the top duos in football, head coach, quarterback, there's some pressure there, too. And we talked earlier, I'm going to steal Paul's stat. You knew I was going to do this.
Well, do
it then. Oh, my goodness. I don't even know. It was Derrick Henry when he gets 20 or more carries.
Yes, well,
they don't lose.
Let's talk about
do it then.
This is an inside joke. Will Derrick Henry be the difference for the Ravens in the playoffs, do you think, Jordan?
I think he should be.
Now you can steal Paul's stat.
He should be the difference.
What's the stat again?
The stat is when he gets 20 or more carries, they're basically the best team in football. And when he gets under 20 carries, they're vulnerable. They've won a few, but they're still. And I go back to week 1 against KC when he had the second fewest carries this season, and they lose. Right. Baltimore is a juggernaut, but they are a juggernaut because of balance and because Derrick Henry is a dominant force on the ground. And inside the 20s, there is not a more physically imposing player in the entire league.
Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons you said, because if Derrick Henry goes off, they don't lose. That's what makes them one of the more explosive offenses. I mean, for goodness gracious, like, they lost to the Raiders and they lost to Cleveland. And you're like, how did they lose to those two teams, bottom feeders? But when you see them at their best, and this is how I judge teams, when I look at the Ravens and I say, at their best, are they better than the top teams? Are they better than the Bills? So when you start looking at it like, damn, at their best, Lamar can go off for 300, Derrick Henry can have 150 yards, and that's going to be tough to beat.
Well, Caleb Williams did not have the rookie season he hopes for, finishing the season with a 5-12 record and seeing his offensive coordinator and head coach both be fired mid-season. During his end-of-season press conference, Caleb talks about what he hopes a new coach can bring. Rough year in Chicago, but are you confident that Caleb Williams can get his confidence back, Paul?
Yeah, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, but that interview, just listen to him, it was a lot of maybe this and maybe that. It didn't sound confident. It didn't sound confident.
A lot's happened since he's gotten to the NFL.
Yeah, a lot's happening, and, he has all the tools. And, when I look around the NFL today and I see guys like Baker Mayfield thriving, who was a #1 pick, when I see Sam Darnold, who was a top 5 pick quarterback, and I see these guys thriving, and Bryce Young, he turned it around the second half of the year this year. And so I believe there's time for him to grow. I think that we get impatient when we see these rookie quarterbacks come in and thrive right away. Jaden Daniels, he comes in, and Bo Nix, so they have the years they have, and you look at Caleb like, why aren't you producing at the level these guys are producing? Well, some guys take longer than others, and that's just the progression of an NFL quarterback career. And so I'm confident that with the tools that he has and with the right coaching and offensive coordinator, that he'll be able to turn around and get his confidence back.
I am too, but it has to be the right hire. You can make the argument that no team is in need of a perfect hire or ideal fit than Chicago, given the fact that the franchise has never really had a bona fide quarterback at that position, the fact that Caleb was a #1 pick. And I would actually go back to his interception streak. He threw well over 326 passes this year without a pick, which broke the single-season rookie record. But I didn't even like that because I thought he started to get too safe. And I think that's really basically telling us that he didn't trust the staff around him, whether it was Getsy, whether it was Eberflus, the entire scheme. I didn't think Caleb was playing that swashbuckling football that we saw at SC when they won the Heisman, even go back to Oklahoma. You look at Jaden Daniels in Washington, the success he had with Cliff Kingsbury, Drake May, even with a less than perfect staff, not a lot of weapons around him. You mentioned Bo Nix, Penix at the end. You mentioned Bryce Young, all these talented young quarterbacks. There's no reason why Caleb Williams can't be that next guy, but it has to be the right hire. And I look at someone like Ben Johnson, who's getting an interview this weekend in Chicago or with Chicago via Zoom. That's the type of innovation, Joy, that you want to see with a young signal caller.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Caleb, but I do think that the hire is very, very, very important. What you don't want to do is make another mistake at that hiring, and then next year we're having the same conversation about moving on from that coach because it's a disaster again. They have to be meticulous about who they bring in, and they have to make sure that whoever they bring in, Caleb feels comfortable with and feels like he can actually grow and develop with him and trust him. But this is why I don't judge rookies. And before the season started, the expectations for Caleb Williams and the Bears were, in my opinion, outrageous.
I remember she sat in this seat. I was pretty bullish on Chicago, and you were like, let's pump the brakes. This is not a great football team.
Thank you for saying that, Jordan. Yes, that is what I said. That is what I said.
And I also like the Jets
times.
more. That was another wrong move.
And you say you're an
We'll give you a pass on that. No, listen, everyone was excited about it. They made a lot of great moves. Ryan Poles was very intentional about the people that he put around him and the weapons that he gave Caleb Williams, and I think they did a nice job. But it takes more than talent to build a culture and to build a winning organization. I believe if you have a culture and you are of a mindset of a winning organization, talent then is the thing that takes you over the top. But we talk about this all the time. You mentioned the Jets. Like, that is a lot to overcome because you guys know this from being in buildings. When it's dysfunctional, there's only so much dysfunction you can overcome. It doesn't matter how talented you are. And that's the situation that Caleb was in. And it's unfortunate because you don't want to waste years, particularly of a young quarterback's career, because those are the moments that you can capitalize on, not only developing, but also they're the most affordable they're ever going to be in the first couple years of their career.
Greatest value in football.
Correct. But just to give everyone just a little bit of space, a little bit of grace. Terry Bradshaw, pretty successful career, 3-5 record his rookie season. Troy Aikman, notoriously bad rookie season, 0-11. John Elway, 4-6. Steve Young, 1-4. Eli Manning, 1-6. Josh Allen, remember Josh Allen's rookie season?
I actually don't even really remember it.
It was unpleasant. I do remember it. Yes, he was quite shaky. Had some raw stuff going on, but quite shaky. 5-6. Jared Goff, 0-7. Jared Goff was a bust. They wanted him out of the league. Can't play.
Wow.
Can't play. It follows him to this day. So people can't believe how good he is. Like, he's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to an NFC Championship game. He's a really good quarterback. But his rookie year, he was a bust. 0-7. Peyton Manning, obviously one of the most notorious rookie seasons of all, 3-13, and had 28 interceptions, 26 touchdowns, 28 interceptions. Things can turn around. These are very, very big names.
You can also go the other way. You can also start off really well. You know, Mac Jones had a really good rookie year, and it didn't really go on to have more success.
Look at Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Had a great rookie season. Things started to get shaky. He's been up and down ever since. They've doubted if he's capable of winning, and now they're in a good position again because you have to have all the pieces around. Football is such a complicated sport. The coaches are so important. They influence every single play. There's so many moving parts. And if on top of that you don't really have a culture and a foundation, it's a lot for a rookie quarterback to come in and do. It's a lot to expect from them. And that's why I was saying it's not that I don't think that Caleb Williams isn't going to develop into something great. I think it's unfair to expect your rookie quarterback to be the one who is solely responsible for setting the tone for an entire organization.
Yeah. I'm waiting. I think we both agree with that. But in terms of like the culture that Chicago hasn't had, this feels it's so dysfunctional.
Special coach. If you want to turn a culture around in 1 year, it takes either a special player or a coach that's already, built like a Belichick could come in and right away set a culture.
I would look at Dan Quinn and Jaden in Washington. That's both.
Yeah, but he's just built that. Because of Jaden, because he got a special, like you said, both.
But that's rare.
That's rare. Like sometimes it takes time as the coach and the quarterback grows, and there's special cases where this guy's influence is so major that it changes it overnight. And this is an important call on who's going to be his next head coach.
But also, I think the priorities matter also, which is why I was pushing back so much on the expectations before the season, because what was the priority? The priority immediately became winning over development. And when you're in the rookie quarterback business, you're in the patience business.
Yes.
You have to be. The priority has to be develop the quarterback into the franchise quarterback. It's a rookie year. You get this pass no matter what because you're a rookie. So the priority shouldn't be, we should go win the division. In the toughest division in football, maybe in history. We should go win the division. We should be competing for an NFC championship game. Maybe they'll go to the Super Bowl. Like, what are we talking about?
It makes me think that influence down in Chicago was influenced by what C.J. Stroud was able to accomplish.
No, that was for sure. That's for sure influenced
it was like,
yes.
Man, if C.J. had a guy, and then this year C.J. got his receivers. They was like, if we had these receivers last year, we probably would have went farther. So they looked at that and was like, man, maybe we can have a quarterback, have him already positioned just in case he does become something like that.
You're absolutely right. C.J. Stroud and that season that they had with the Texans that D'Amico and C.J. had absolutely influenced this because the Texans had no expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
So they beyond overachieved. They were expected to be one of the worst teams in the league.
Yes.
But as much as you just mentioned that was brought up many times, and I pushed back on that for a number of reasons. The division you play in matters. Yeah. This is the toughest division in football. You've got the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers in the division.
Rough.
Who do the Texans have? And Jacksonville was in charge, was running that division last year and completely fell apart, which the Texans were in the position to rise as they were falling, but they needed another team in their division to completely collapse in order to be in that position. So all of those things really matter. And C.J. Stroud's success absolutely influenced the expectations there. Well, one potential option for the Bears is Pete Carroll, who is interviewing with the team today. Jordan.
Yeah.
Would Pete be a good fit in Chicago?
Okay, so I think Pete Carroll is a very good, maybe a great NFL head coach. Been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. But in this specific instance, I don't think he's a good fit at all. Because I talked earlier about that innovation. Pete Carroll, 73. I know he has the rah-rah. He relates to young players. I'm sure he can relate to Caleb the way he did with Russ in Seattle. But this is not the type of coach or personality, I don't believe, that Caleb needs. I think he needs, we had said before the show, Mike McDaniel, when he went to Tua, he showed Tua 700 highlight reels, his best plays of his career, saying, this is what I'm going to turn you into. All due respect to Pete Carroll, he's a defensive guy. And even then, his last 3 or 4 years in Seattle, the defense was not very good. They were not disciplined. Chicago, Caleb Williams needs an offensive guy. I mean, there's a lot of guys. It's not just Ben Johnson. I mean, it's Joe Brady. They're going to bring in Cliff Kingsbury to interview. They have to have someone that can get him from A to B to C. Pete Carroll is someone you bring in to establish a culture. That's true. But in this specific case with a young quarterback, I don't think he's the right guy.
Yeah, I'm done with recycling these old coaches. I mean, he needs new energy, young. And I've said it since 3 or 4 weeks ago that Ben Johnson is the guy. He's the guy. He even showed it off versus the Bears with the trick plays. Like, look, this is what I got, guys. I can bring this over there. What was the play to hand?
It was a fake. Jared Goff pretends to fall. Ben Johnson, does an unbelievable, and then he throws the touchdown to Laporta. I think it was.
Look what I got in my bag. If it was against Chicago, like, hey guys, look what I got in my bag. That was like a sign. That part right there was like a sign that he's showing off versus Chicago because this is where he's going to be next year.
Yeah, I'd like them to have the coach that they're going to have for the next 10 plus years.
Yes.
What I don't want is for Caleb Williams to have to go through another coaching change. And while I do think that there may be some places that Pete would be extremely helpful, this is too important of a hire, and they need to get an offensive guy. Yeah. If they are going to go with the defensive guy, it's somebody that has shown the ability to make excellent offensive coordinator hires consistently and develop
That's not
quarterbacks.
Pete.
That's part of the reason why Dan Quinn, I absolutely loved that hire. That was an organization that needed culture, that needed identity, And Dan Quinn is great at hiring offensive coordinators. And what does he have right now in Washington? And that is no surprise to me that they're having the success that they're having when you bring in someone like Jaden Daniels, who has risen the way he has. He has a great staff around him. Dan Quinn is great at that and great at putting together good people around him. So that part to me is really important.
Yeah, coming from Matt Eberflus to go to Pete Carroll, like that's too similar. I mean, I'm not saying they're the same guy, but these are defensive first head coaches. And Pete, like, I'm not saying Pete shouldn't be a head coach again, but with Chicago, maybe the Jets actually. That's not a bad fit. That's not a bad fit. They don't have a quarterback there necessarily for the future. They need culture as well, but it has to be. It's a very specific type of role that Pete, in my opinion, excels in. Whereas if you bring in someone again that can relate to Caleb, and we had said earlier about the Jets and Jags, like both those teams had a lot of talent this year. Both those teams significantly underachieved. Yeah. I don't think Pete Carroll's a solution in Chicago.
Before we go, you can help families impacted by the California wildfires. Visit go.fox/Red Cross or scan the QR code on your screen to support these efforts. Your donation enables the Red Cross to respond to and help people recover from this disaster. Fox has already donated over $1 million, and please donate if you can too. We'll have more Speak for you after this. Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.